The air inside the cabin felt thick, suffocating. Row by row, passengers pretended not to notice what was happening in first class, but everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. Perhaps your family would be more comfortable in a different section. The flight attendant's voice was sweet, dripping with false politeness, but her eyes told a different story. She stood over them like a guard, arms crossed, waiting for compliance. Dr. Sarah Williams sat frozen in seat 2B, her hand gripping her 8-year-old daughter's shoulder. Her grandmother, Dorothy, sat on the other side, her jaw clenched in a way that spoke of decades of similar moments. And then, cutting through the tension like a knife, came the small, uncertain voice of a child. "Should I call Uncle Marcus?" The flight attendant laughed. Not a genuine laugh, but the kind that dismisses, that mocks. "Honey, I don't think your uncle can help with this." Maya Williams, 8 years old, 4 feet tall, wearing a pilot's wings pin that once belonged to her dead father, looked up at the woman towering over her and said 5 words that would change everything. "Uncle Marcus is the CEO of Skyward Airlines." The moment froze. The flight attendant's face drained of color. And somewhere 30,000 feet below them, a phone was about to ring that would turn this woman's world upside down. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how we got here, to understand how an 8-year-old girl ended up facing down discrimination on her uncle's own airline, we need to go back. Back to a family who'd already lost too much. Back to a morning that started with hope and ended with a lesson no child should have to learn. This is the story of Maya Williams. And trust me, you've never heard anything like it. 3 days earlier, Dr. Sarah Williams stood in an operating room with a human heart literally in her hands. The surgery had gone on for 7 hours. The patient, a 62-year-old grandfather of 5, had coded twice on the table. But Sarah brought him back. Both times. That's who Sarah Williams was. A cardiovascular surgeon. One of the best on the West Coast. She spent her days performing miracles, restarting hearts that had given up, giving people second chances at life. But if you saw her in that airport terminal at 6 in the morning, exhausted and running on 3 hours of sleep, you wouldn't know any of that. You'd just see a black woman in a blazer, natural locks twisted into an elegant updo, pulling a carry-on while trying to keep her daughter from running too far ahead. Sarah had worked 3 jobs to get through medical school. 3 jobs. While raising Maya alone after her husband died. While grieving a man she thought she'd grow old with. While trying to be everything a child needs when the world keeps taking and never seems to give back enough. She became a doctor because she wanted to save people. She became a surgeon because she wanted to be so good, so undeniable, that her skill would speak louder than any prejudice. She thought if she was excellent enough, respected enough, successful enough, that maybe, just maybe, her daughter would grow up in a world that saw her worth first and her skin color second. She was wrong. But on that morning, Sarah didn't know what was coming. She was focused on other things. The emergency surgery scheduled the day after they returned from San Francisco. The patient notes she'd review on the flight. The nagging worry that she was working too much, missing too many of Maya's moments. Guilt was Sarah's constant companion. The guilt of a mother who saves strangers' lives while wondering if she's giving enough life to her own child. "Mommy, look." Maya's voice cut through Sarah's thoughts. Her daughter stood at the massive terminal window, pressed against the glass, watching planes take off and land. Her eyes were wide with wonder, the same wonder that lit up her father's face every time he talked about flying. Maya Williams was 8 years old, but she carried herself like she understood things most adults never would. She noticed everything. The way people looked at her mother. The way conversations changed when they entered rooms. The way some kids at her expensive private school said she only got in because of affirmative action, even though she was reading at a 10th grade level in 2nd grade. Maya loved airplanes. Loved them the way her father had. She kept a worn notebook everywhere she went, filled with sketches of planes. Different models, different angles, technical drawings that showed understanding beyond her years. She could identify aircraft by their engine sound before they even appeared in the sky. On her chest, pinned carefully to her jacket, were a pair of pilot's wings. Gold-plated, a little scratched but polished lovingly. They'd belonged to Captain James Williams, her father, before a mechanical failure on a routine flight 5 years ago turned Maya's world into before and after. Before Daddy. After Daddy. She was 3 when it happened. Old enough to remember him, young enough that the memories were fading, becoming more feeling than fact. She remembered his laugh. The way he'd scoop her up and spin her until she was dizzy. The stories he'd tell about flying through storms and seeing sunrises from above the clouds. She didn't remember his face as clearly anymore. That scared her. She'd stare at photos, trying to burn them into her memory, terrified of the day when she couldn't picture him at all. The pilot wings helped. When she touched them, she felt close to him. When she wore them, she felt brave. "Come on, Maya Bean." Her grandmother's voice was warm, patient. "Let's not get too far from Mommy." Dorothy Williams was 68 years old and had seen more than most people see in 2 lifetimes. She'd been a teacher for 40 years, but before that, she'd been something else entirely. A freedom rider. In 1961, when she was just 19, Dorothy had boarded buses in the segregated South, risking her life for the radical idea that all people deserved equal treatment. She'd been arrested 4 times. Beaten once so badly she lost hearing in her left ear. She'd stared down angry mobs, police dogs, and fire hoses. She'd sat at lunch counters where she wasn't welcome and refused to move until she was served or dragged away. Dorothy thought she'd fought those battles so her granddaughter wouldn't have to. She was wrong too. But that morning, as she helped Maya with her backpack, making sure the little girl had her notebook and her favorite book and a snack for the flight, Dorothy was just a grandmother. Elegant in her silver hair and pearls, moving with the dignity of someone who'd earned every one of her 68 years. "Grandma, do you think Daddy can see us from heaven?" Maya asked suddenly, still looking at the planes. Dorothy's heart clenched, but her voice stayed steady. "I think your daddy sees everything you do, baby. And I know he's so proud of how brave and smart you are. I miss him." "I know. We all do." Sarah joined them at the window, checking her watch. Boarding would start soon. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through work emails, then caught herself. This was supposed to be a family trip. Her brother's wedding. A celebration. She was supposed to be present, not half focused on the surgery waiting for her back home. "You excited about Uncle Marcus's wedding?" Sarah asked Maya, putting her phone away. Maya's face lit up. "Is James going to let me be in the ceremony?" Uncle Marcus said maybe. "You're the flower girl, remember? Pretty important job." "I know, but..." Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. "Some of the kids at school said 2 boys can't really get married. That it's not real." Sarah knelt down, eye level with her daughter. "Some people are wrong about a lot of things. Uncle Marcus and James love each other. That's what makes a marriage real." "Well, nothing else." Maya nodded, processing. She was always processing, always thinking, trying to understand a world that often didn't make sense. The boarding announcement crackled over the speakers. First class could board. Sarah felt a flutter of pride. She'd saved for months for these tickets. First class. Her family deserved comfort. Deserved luxury. They were flying to celebrate her brother, the man who'd built himself from nothing into the CEO of a major airline. They were celebrating love and family and survival. If anyone deserved first-class seats, they did. "All right, ladies," Sarah said, standing and smoothing her blazer. "Let's go." They gathered their belongings and joined the line at the gate. Maya clutched her backpack, the one with the airplane patches she'd sewn on herself. Dorothy adjusted her pearls. Sarah held their boarding passes, the ones she'd purchased with money she'd earned saving lives. The gate agent smiled at them. A real smile. "First class. Enjoy your flight." That smile should have been an omen of how the whole trip would go. But it wasn't. Because waiting in that first-class cabin was a woman named Janet Richardson. And Janet Richardson had worked for Skyward Airlines for 22 years. She was professional. Polished. She knew every protocol, every procedure, every rule in the book. She also carried prejudices she'd never examined, biases she'd never questioned, and assumptions she'd learned so long ago they felt like facts instead of poison. Janet was 54 years old. Her blonde hair was always perfectly styled. Her uniform was always crisp. Her smile was always bright. She'd spent 2 decades serving passengers, pouring drinks, handling emergencies, making people comfortable at 30,000 feet. She was good at her job. Everyone said so. She'd been Employee of the Month 7 times. Never missed a shift. Always punctual. Always professional. But Janet had been passed over for promotion 3 times in 5 years. She'd watched younger flight attendants, less experienced attendants, get the positions she thought she deserved. And with each rejection, something bitter had grown inside her. Something she didn't even recognize in herself. She told herself she wasn't prejudiced. She had black coworkers she was friendly with. She'd served black passengers thousands of times. She didn't use slurs. She didn't burn crosses. How could anyone call her racist? But prejudice doesn't always wear a hood. Sometimes it wears a uniform and a smile. Sometimes it says ma'am and sir, while making decisions about who belongs and who doesn't based on the color of their skin. Janet didn't think of herself as a bad person. Bad people did bad things intentionally. She was just being realistic. Being practical. following her instincts about who seemed out of place. And when she saw Dr. Sarah Williams, Dorothy Williams, and 8-year-old Maya Williams boarding her first-class cabin that morning, every single one of her unexamined instincts screamed that something was wrong. The Williams family walked down the jetway, Maya skipping a little, excited despite herself. They reached the aircraft door. The pilot stood there greeting passengers. "Welcome aboard, folks. Beautiful day for flying." Maya stared at him, then at her mother. "Mommy, do you think Daddy's flying with us today?" Sarah's throat tightened. "Always, baby. Always." They stepped into first class. The cabin was beautiful. Wide leather seats. Plenty of legroom. Warm lighting. This was the world Sarah had worked so hard to access. The world she wanted Maya to feel comfortable in, to know she belonged in. And there, standing at the front of the cabin with a tablet in her hand, was Janet Richardson. Their eyes met. Something flickered across Janet's face. Surprise maybe. Or was it disapproval? It happened so fast most people wouldn't have caught it. But Maya caught it. Because Maya noticed everything. She tugged on her mother's sleeve, but Sarah was already moving forward, boarding passes ready, determined to make this smooth. "Good morning," Sarah said, her voice carrying the warm professionalism she used with patients' families. "Williams Party, seats 2A, B, and C." Janet took the boarding passes, but her eyes lingered on them longer than necessary. She glanced at the passes, then at the family, then back at the passes. "These are first-class tickets," Janet said slowly, as if confirming something impossible. "Yes," Sarah replied, her smile tightening just slightly. "That's what we purchased." "Of course. Let me verify these in the system real quick." Dorothy's eyes narrowed. She knew this dance. She'd been dancing it for 68 years. Janet scanned the boarding passes with her device, watching the screen intently as if waiting for it to tell her these tickets were fake, were mistakes, were anything but what they clearly were, legitimate first-class reservations. The system confirmed what the boarding passes already said. "Well?" Janet's voice went up an octave, took on that syrupy sweet tone that made Sarah's skin crawl. Someone must have been very generous. What a lovely gift. The assumption hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's jaw tightened. "We purchased these tickets ourselves." "Thank you." "Oh, of course. I didn't mean to. I just meant first class is such a treat. You're going to love it." But the damage was done. The implication had landed. Janet thought someone had given them these tickets. Janet couldn't imagine them buying first-class tickets themselves. They moved to their seats. 2A, 2B, 2C. Window, middle aisle. Maya wanted the window. She always wanted the window. She needed to see the clouds, the place where her daddy lived now. Sarah helped her settle in, stowing their carry-ons, making sure Maya had her notebook and her book. Dorothy took the middle seat, Sarah the aisle. Around them, other first-class passengers settled in. A wealthy-looking elderly white couple across the aisle in seats 2D and 2E. The man wore an expensive watch. The woman had diamonds that probably cost more than Sarah's car. Behind them, a young tech executive, maybe 30, already had his noise-canceling headphones on, laptop out, completely absorbed in his own world. Further back, business travelers in suits, some already on phone calls, closing deals, living the life of comfortable frequent flyers who belonged in first class without question. The elderly woman across the aisle glanced at the Williams family. Her eyes held something Sarah couldn't quite read. Sympathy maybe? Or judgment? She smiled slightly, then looked away. Everyone looked away. That was the thing. They all saw. They all noticed. But they all looked away. Maya pressed her face to the window, watching the ground crew load luggage, preparing for takeoff. Her fingers touched the pilot wings on her chest. "Daddy, we're going to Uncle Marcus's wedding," she whispered to the glass. "I wish you could be there too." Sarah's heart broke and healed and broke again in the space of a second. This was motherhood. This was grief. This was love. All at once, all the time, never letting up. Dorothy reached over and squeezed Sarah's hand. No words needed. They'd been through too much together for words. Janet Richardson moved through the cabin, greeting other passengers. Her voice was bright, cheerful, genuine as she welcomed the elderly couple. "Mr. and Mrs. Patterson. So wonderful to see you again. How was your trip to Napa?" "Oh, Janet, it was marvelous. We brought you back a bottle of that Cabernet you loved." Laughter. Warmth. Familiarity. Janet moved to the tech executive, lowered her voice respectfully. "Sir, can I get you anything before we take off?" He barely looked up. "I'm good." "Of course. Just let me know." She worked her way through first class, personalized greetings, remembered details, made everyone feel special. Everyone except the Williams family. When she passed their row, she didn't stop. Didn't ask if they needed anything. Didn't make eye contact. Sarah noticed. Dorothy noticed. Maya noticed. "Mommy," Maya whispered, "why didn't she ask us what we wanted?" "It's okay, baby. We're fine." But they both knew it wasn't okay. And it was only going to get worse. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible in a place where you had every right to be seen? Have you ever been treated like you didn't belong in a space you'd earned access to? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story is hitting you in the chest like it's hitting me, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next is going to make you angry, it's going to make you cry, and it's going to make you cheer. Trust me, you don't want to miss a second of this. The cabin filled up. More passengers. More greetings from Janet, warm for some, perfunctory for others, non-existent for the Williams family. Pre-flight service began. Janet emerged from the galley with a tray of champagne flutes, the good stuff, the welcome to first-class ritual that made passengers feel special. She moved down the aisle, offering glasses with a smile. "Champagne? We have a lovely selection this morning." The Pattersons each took a glass, clinked them together, toasted their vacation. The business travelers took glasses. The tech executive waved her off but received the offer. Janet reached the Williams family's row. She walked right past. Not quickly. Not like she forgot. But deliberately, holding the tray of champagne, making eye contact with passengers behind them. Sarah felt her chest tighten. No, not yet. Maybe it was an oversight. Maybe Janet would come back. Maya looked up at her mother, confused. "Mommy, don't we get champagne?" Dorothy's voice was quiet, controlled. "Baby, you're too young for champagne anyway. But Mommy and Grandma aren't." Sarah reached forward, gently touched Janet's arm as she passed. "Excuse me." Janet turned, eyebrows raised as if surprised to find them there. "Yes. We'd also like what you're serving, please." Something crossed Janet's face. Irritation? Surprised that they'd spoken up? "Oh, I'm so sorry. I just assumed, well, it's alcohol and I thought maybe, with the little one?" The implication hung there. What exactly had she assumed? "I'd like champagne, please," Sarah said firmly. "And my mother would as well." "Of course. Absolutely. I'll be right back." Janet's voice was bright, apologetic, but there was an edge underneath. An annoyance at being corrected. She returned moments later with 2 glasses, handed them over with an exaggerated smile. "I am so sorry about that. It's just so busy this morning, you know how it is. My mind is everywhere." But her mind hadn't been everywhere when she'd offered champagne to every other passenger. Her mind had been very specifically focused on who deserved the offer and who didn't. Sarah took the glass without responding. Dorothy took hers with a quiet "thank you" that somehow sounded like a challenge. They sipped their champagne. Was good. Expensive. The kind of thing Sarah rarely allowed herself because there was always something else that needed the money. Maya's tuition. Medical equipment. Savings for emergencies. But today, on this flight, flying first class to her brother's wedding, Sarah was going to enjoy every damn sip. Janet continued her pre-flight routine. Demonstrating safety features, checking seat belts, stowing items. She worked efficiently, professionally, but whenever she passed the Williams family, her movements became stiffer, her smile tighter. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Captain Rodriguez." Experienced, calm, the voice of authority. "Good morning, folks. This is your captain speaking. We're looking at beautiful weather today, smooth flight to San Francisco, should have you on the ground right on time. Flight attendants, prepare for departure." The plane began to push back from the gate. Maya's excitement overrode everything else. This was her favorite part. The moment when the ground started moving, when the world began the transition from earth to sky. She gripped the armrests, her notebook forgotten in her lap, eyes glued to the window. The plane taxied. Other passengers settled in, pulling out books, tablets, preparing for the flight. The Pattersons held hands, comfortable in their routine. The tech executive was already typing furiously on his laptop. The business travelers made last-minute phone calls. And the Williams family sat in their seats, trying to enjoy what they'd paid for while the weight of being unwelcome pressed down on them like the air pressure in the cabin. The plane reached the runway. Paused. The engines roared to life. Maya gasped with delight as they accelerated faster and faster, until that magical moment when the wheels left the ground and they were flying. "We're flying, Daddy," she whispered to the window. "We're flying." Sarah watched her daughter's face, saw the pure joy there, and felt a fierce protective love surge through her. This child. This brilliant, sensitive, beautiful child deserved a world that saw her wonder before it saw her skin color. The seatbelt sign stayed illuminated for the first few minutes as they gained altitude. Then it dinged off. Passengers shifted, got comfortable. Some stood to use the restroom. Others pulled out work or entertainment. Maya unbuckled her seatbelt carefully, the way her mother had taught her. "Mommy, I need to use the bathroom." "Okay, baby. Do you need me to come with you?" "I'm 8, Mommy. I can go by myself." Sarah smiled. Her daughter was growing up, becoming independent. But she was still so small, so vulnerable. "All right. Come right back, okay?" "Okay." Maya stood, smoothed her dress, adjusted her pilot wings, and walked toward the first-class lavatory at the front of the cabin. She'd made it maybe 3 steps when Janet appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. "Excuse me, sweetheart. Where do you think you're going?" Maya stopped, looked up at the flight attendant towering over her. "To the bathroom, ma'am." Janet's smile was tight, her voice syrupy. "Oh, honey, the lavatories in economy are available. Perhaps that would be more suitable for you." The cabin didn't go silent. Not exactly. But there was a shift, a change in the air. Conversations didn't stop, but they lowered. Passengers didn't turn to stare, but they angled slightly, aware something was happening. Maya stood there, confused. "But, we're in first class. This is the first-class bathroom." "I understand that, sweetie, but there are other bathrooms on the plane and maybe—" Sarah was up before Janet finished the sentence. Her voice was controlled, but there was steel underneath. "My daughter will use the first-class restroom. We are first-class passengers." Janet turned, her mask of professionalism slipping just slightly. "Ma'am, I'm simply trying to ensure all passengers are comfortable." "Comfortable with what, exactly?" Dorothy's voice cut through, decades of controlled fury behind it. The elderly woman across the aisle shifted in her seat, looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Her husband stared determinedly at his magazine. The tech executive glanced up, caught the tension, immediately looked back down at his screen. No one wanted to be involved. No one wanted to see what they were seeing. Janet's face flushed. "Ma'am, I don't appreciate the implication." "I'm not implying anything," Dorothy said, her voice quiet but carrying through the cabin. "I'm stating clearly. We know exactly what you're doing. I am trying to do my job." "Your job is to serve all passengers equally," Sarah said. "My daughter needs to use the restroom. She will use this restroom. Is that clear?" A standoff. Right there in first class, over an 8-year-old girl's right to use a bathroom. Janet's mouth opened, closed. She looked around, perhaps hoping for support from other passengers. Found none. Everyone was suddenly fascinated by their books, their screens, their windows. "Fine," Janet said tightly. "Of course. As you wish." She stepped aside. Maya, who'd been frozen during this entire exchange, hurried to the bathroom. Her small hands shook as she locked the door behind her. Inside that tiny lavatory, Maya Williams, 8 years old, looked at herself in the mirror. At her brown skin. At her natural hair pulled into 2 puffs. At the pilot wings her daddy had given her. And she wondered, for the first time in her life but not the last, if there was something wrong with her. She didn't take long in the bathroom. She wanted to get back to her mother, to the safety of her seat, to the window where she could pretend to fly with her father and forget that people looked at her and saw something that didn't belong. When she emerged, Janet was gone. Disappeared into the galley or to the back of the plane. Maya walked quickly back to her seat, slipped in next to her mother, buckled her seatbelt even though the sign was off. Sarah pulled her close. "You did nothing wrong, baby." "Nothing." But Maya had questions. Questions burning in her 8-year-old mind. "Mommy, why was she mean to me?" Sarah's heart shattered. How do you explain racism to a child? How do you tell your daughter that some people will hate her for something she can't control? How do you prepare her for a world that will judge her before it knows her? Some people. Sarah started, then stopped. Chose her words carefully. Some people make wrong assumptions about people based on how they look. It's not right. It's never right. But it happens. Because I'm black? The word hung in the air. Yes, baby. Because we're black. But you're a doctor. You save people's lives. I know. And Grandma was a teacher. She taught people. I know. And Uncle Marcus is the boss of this whole airline. I know, baby. So why doesn't she care about that? Dorothy leaned in, her voice gentle but honest in a way only a grandmother who'd lived through Jim Crow could be. Because some people see skin color before they see anything else. And that's their problem, not yours. You are brilliant. You are kind. You are worthy. And don't you ever let anyone make you feel small. Maya nodded, but her eyes were wet. She pulled out her notebook, tried to focus on her drawings, but her hands weren't steady enough. Sarah exchanged a look with Dorothy. That look said everything. Fury. Heartbreak. Exhaustion. The weight of fighting battles they thought they'd already won. The flight continued. Service began. Watch. Janet moved through the cabin with a cart, serving meals with practiced efficiency. Passengers chose between chicken, beef, and pasta. The first-class meal service, complete with actual silverware and real plates. Janet served the Pattersons first. Mr. Patterson, I know you love the beef. We have a lovely fillet today. Perfect, Janet. Thank you. She moved down the aisle. Serve the tech executive. Serve the business travelers. Each received prompt, courteous service. The cart reached the Williams family row. Janet's smile was strained. We have chicken or pasta remaining. I'm afraid the beef is gone. Sarah looked at her. Looked at the timing. They were literally the last row served in first class. That's interesting, Sarah said calmly, considering we're in row 2. Well, it's first come, first served and… You started serving from row 1. We're row 2. How exactly did the beef run out before you reached the second row? Janet's face flushed. I don't control the portions loaded onto the… I'll have the chicken, Dorothy said quietly, defusing before things escalated. Pasta for me, Sarah said. And for the little one? Chicken please, Maya whispered. Janet served them efficiently, no warmth, no pleasantries, just plates on tray tables and a quick retreat. They ate in silence. The food was good. First-class airline food, which meant actually edible, thoughtfully prepared. But it tasted like ash in Sarah's mouth. She'd paid the same price as every other passenger in this cabin. She'd earned her medical degree. She'd saved countless lives. She paid her taxes. She raised her daughter to be polite and kind and respectful. And still she was treated like she didn't belong. Maya ate slowly, her appetite gone. She kept glancing around the cabin, seeing other passengers chatting with Janet, laughing, comfortable. Why was it so different for them? The elderly woman across the aisle caught Maya looking at her. For a moment their eyes met. The woman's face showed discomfort, maybe even guilt. But she didn't smile. Didn't offer a kind word. Just looked away. Everyone looked away. That was almost worse than Janet's active discrimination. The passive enabling. The silent witnesses who saw injustice and chose comfort over courage. After lunch service, Janet collected trays. When she reached the Williams family, she did so without a word. Just grabbed their trays and moved on. Then she did something that made Sarah's blood run cold. Janet stood in the galley area, visible through the curtain, talking to another flight attendant. A younger woman, maybe 30. They were looking toward the Williams family. Janet was gesturing, her face animated. The younger flight attendant looked concerned, uncomfortable. They were talking about them. Sarah knew it. Dorothy knew it. And worst of all, Maya knew it. Mommy, Maya tugged Sarah's sleeve. Why is she pointing at us? I don't know, baby. But she did know. And what came next was going to be even worse. Because Janet Richardson wasn't done. She'd made a decision. A decision that would change her life, change the Williams family's life, and ultimately change an entire airline's policies. She'd decided that these passengers needed to be moved. For the comfort of the other passengers. For the sanctity of first class. 4 reasons she convinced herself were legitimate but were rooted in nothing but bias. Janet emerged from the galley, her face set with determination. She walked directly to the Williams family's row. Stood there, arms crossed, with the kind of authority that came from 2 decades of controlling airplane cabins. And she opened her mouth to say the words that would set everything in motion. Excuse me, ma'am. I'm going to need to speak with you about a seating situation we've encountered. Sarah looked up at her, already knowing, already bracing. A seating situation? Yes. You see, we've had some complaints. Complaints? Sarah's voice was sharp. What complaints? Some passengers have expressed that they're uncomfortable with the current seating arrangement. The cabin shifted again. That awareness, that attention, all focused on this one row. Dorothy's voice was deadly quiet. Uncomfortable with what, specifically? Janet's facade cracked. Perhaps your family would be more comfortable in a different section. We have seats available in economy. I'd be happy to facilitate a move to make everyone more comfortable. There it was. The request. No, not a request. A demand dressed up as a suggestion. Move to the back of the plane. Know your place. Accept that you don't belong here with the rest of us. Sarah stood up slowly. She was 5'7", but in that moment she seemed 10 feet tall. Let me make sure I understand you correctly. You're asking me and my family who purchased first-class tickets, who have done nothing wrong, who have sat quietly in our assigned seats, to move to economy because someone is uncomfortable. Ma'am, I'm trying to avoid a situation. What situation? The situation where a black family dares to sit in first class. Her voice rose slightly. Other passengers were definitely listening now. Janet's professionalism was disintegrating in real time. I never said anything about race. You didn't have to, Dorothy said, standing as well. You've said everything without saying it. Maya sat between them, small and scared, watching adults fight over whether she deserved to sit in a seat her mother had bought. Mommy, did we do something wrong? That question. That heartbreaking, innocent question from an 8-year-old child who'd internalized that somehow, this must be her fault. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed strong. No, baby. We did absolutely nothing wrong. She turned to Janet, and her voice dropped to something cold and final. We are not moving. We purchased these tickets. We are in our assigned seats. And if you have a problem with that, I suggest you call your supervisor. Better yet, call the CEO. I'm sure he'd love to hear about this. Janet's face flushed deep red. Ma'am, I am the senior flight attendant on this aircraft. I have the authority to ensure passengers' safety and comfort. Are you threatening to have us removed? Sarah asked clearly, loudly enough that everyone could hear. I'm saying cooperation would be in everyone's best interest. Dorothy laughed, a sound with no humor in it. We've heard that before. In the 60s they said the same thing. Go to the back of the bus. For everyone's comfort. For everyone's safety. Same words. Different decade. The tech executive finally pulled off his headphones, watching openly now. The Pattersons looked deeply uncomfortable but remained silent. A business traveler behind them pulled out his phone. And 8-year-old Maya Williams, who'd been quiet through all of this, who'd been trying to be small and invisible, suddenly spoke up. Should I call Uncle Marcus? The cabin froze. Janet barely glanced at her. Honey, I don't think your uncle. Uncle Marcus is Marcus Thompson, Maya said, her voice clearer now. He's the CEO of Skyward Airlines. This airline. She pulled out her phone, her small fingers navigating to her contacts. Held up the screen. A photo. Recent. Clear. Maya sitting on the shoulders of a tall, distinguished-looking black man in an expensive suit. Both of them laughing, heads thrown back, pure joy on their faces. Janet's face went from red to white in an instant. That could be anyone, she stammered, but her voice had lost its authority. Maya scrolled. Another photo. Christmas. A huge family gathering. The same man in an ugly Christmas sweater, surrounded by family including Sarah and Dorothy and Maya. Another photo. Marcus in a pilot's uniform, pinning wings onto young Maya's chest. The same wings she wore now. The tech executive leaned forward, squinted at the photos. His eyes widened. Holy shit, he muttered. That's actually Marcus Thompson. Janet was spiraling. I was just doing my job. Following protocols. I didn't mean, this is all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, Sarah repeated coldly. Is that what we're calling racism now? I'm not racist. I was just. You were just what? Dorothy challenged. Just treating us differently because of our skin color? Just assuming we didn't belong? Just trying to force us out of seats we paid for? What would you call that? Other passengers were pulling out phones now. Recording. The business traveler who'd been watching earlier aimed his camera directly at Janet. I've been recording since you demanded they move to economy, he said quietly. Got the whole thing. Janet looked around wildly, seeing her world collapsing. Please, let's all calm down. Maya, still holding her phone, looked up at her mother with those big, wise eyes. Should I call him Mommy? Not to be mean. But maybe he should know. Sarah's hand rested on her daughter's head, protective and proud. It's your choice, baby. But whatever you decide, Mommy supports you. Maya looked at Janet. Really looked at her. Saw a woman who'd been cruel, yes, but also a woman who was now scared. Terrified. I don't want to get you in trouble, Maya said softly. I just wanted you to be nice. That line. That devastating, heartbreaking line from a child who'd been mistreated and still led with kindness. It broke something in the cabin. The elderly woman across the aisle started crying. Actually crying. This has been disgraceful, she said, her voice shaking. Absolutely disgraceful. I should have said something sooner. I'm ashamed. Her husband, silent until now, nodded. We saw everything. If there's any question about what happened here, we'll testify to it. Janet was backing away now, hands up. Please, let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. I'm sure we can work this out. Make it bigger? Sarah's voice was ice. You tried to humiliate my family. You targeted my child. You made racial assumptions and then tried to force us out when we didn't comply. And you think it shouldn't be bigger than it is? Maya's finger hovered over the contact. Uncle Marcus CO. One call. That's all it would take. One call to change everything. Sarah watched her daughter's face. Saw the internal struggle. Maya was kind. Too kind sometimes. She didn't want to hurt people, even people who'd hurt her. But Dorothy placed her hand gently on Maya's shoulder. Sometimes, baby, people need to face consequences to learn. And sometimes staying silent protects the wrong people. Maya looked at the pilot wings on her chest. Touched them the way she always did when she needed courage. Then she pressed dial. The phone rang once. Twice. Then a deep, warm voice filled the cabin through the speaker. Maya Bean. Are you in the sky? How's my favorite future pilot? Maya's voice cracked. Uncle Marcus, we're on your airplane, and the lady is being mean to us. The warmth in Marcus Thompson's voice evaporated instantly. Mean? Maya, what's happening? Is everyone safe? Sarah took the phone from her daughter's trembling hands. Marcus, it's Sarah. Sarah? What's going on? You're scaring me. Sarah's voice was measured, controlled, but the fury underneath was unmistakable. We're being harassed by your flight attendant. She's been discriminating against us since we boarded. She tried to deny Maya access to the first-class restroom. She skipped us during service. And now she's demanding we move to economy because apparently some passengers are uncomfortable with a black family in first class. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then Marcus's voice came back, and it wasn't warm anymore. It was cold steel. What flight are you on? Give me the flight number. The tail number if you can see it. And the name of the flight attendant. Sarah provided the information. Janet was physically backing away now, her face pale. Put me on with the pilot, Marcus said. Right now. The younger flight attendant who'd been in the galley appeared, looking horrified. She'd heard everything. I'll get Captain Rodriguez, she said quickly, disappearing toward the cockpit. The cabin was absolutely silent now. Every passenger watching. Every phone recording. Moments later, Captain Rodriguez emerged from the cockpit. Mid-50s, experienced, the kind of pilot who'd seen everything. Except he hadn't seen this. Sarah handed him the phone. The CO would like to speak with you. Rodriguez's eyebrows shot up, but he took the phone. This is Captain Rodriguez. Whatever Marcus said next, it made the captain's face go hard. Yes, sir. I understand. It will be handled immediately. Yes, sir. You have my word. He ended the call, handed the phone back to Sarah, then turned to Janet. His voice carried through the cabin, professional but unmistakably furious. Ms. Richardson, you need to come with me. Now. Janet looked like she might argue, but something in Rodriguez's face stopped her. They moved to the galley area, but the curtain didn't quite hide them. Passengers could see Rodriguez speaking to Janet in clipped, harsh tones. Could see Janet's body language shift from defensive to defeated. When they emerged, Janet's eyes were red. Rodriguez's jaw was clenched. Ms. Richardson has something to say to you, Rodriguez said, his tone making it clear this wasn't optional. Janet stood before the Williams family. Her carefully constructed professionalism was in ruins. I apologize if my actions were misconstrued. Stop, Dorothy's voice cut through. Not misconstrued. They were exactly what they appeared to be. Rodriguez stepped forward. Ms. Richardson, a genuine apology. Now. Janet's voice shook. Whether from remorse or fear for her job was unclear. I'm sorry. I was wrong in how I treated you. I made assumptions I shouldn't have made. Maya, with that devastating maturity that shouldn't belong to an 8-year-old, asked the question that mattered. Do you know why you were wrong? Janet couldn't answer. She opened her mouth, closed it, tears streaming down her face now. Maya continued, her voice soft but cutting. My daddy was a pilot. He flew planes like this one. He always said everyone deserves respect in the sky because we're all just people trying to get somewhere safe. He said airplanes are where we're all equal. The cabin was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Several passengers were crying now. The elderly woman across the aisle had her hand over her mouth, tears running down her cheeks. Your father was right, Rodriguez said quietly, looking at Maya. And I'm sorry that we failed to live up to that standard today. He turned to Sarah and Dorothy. Ms. Richardson will be suspended pending a full investigation upon landing. For the remainder of this flight, I will personally ensure your comfort and safety. And I give you my word, this will be fully investigated and addressed." Then he did something that surprised everyone. He knelt down so he was eye level with Maya. "Young lady, you showed more courage today than most adults show in a lifetime. Your father would be incredibly proud of you." "I'm proud of you." Maya's lip trembled. "I didn't want to get anyone in trouble. I just wanted her to stop being mean." "I know, sweetheart. But sometimes speaking up is the only way things change. You did the right thing." Rodriguez stood, addressed the entire cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for what you witnessed today. There is no excuse for discriminatory behavior on this aircraft or any Skyward Airlines flight. We will be conducting a thorough review of our training and protocols. And I want to be clear, every passenger on this airline is valued and deserves equal treatment and respect. No exceptions." A few passengers clapped. Then more joined in. Soon the entire first-class cabin was applauding. Not for the drama, but for justice. For a child who'd been brave enough to speak up. For a family who'd refused to accept less than they deserved. Janet was escorted to the back of the plane. The younger flight attendant took over first-class service. Her name was Andrea, and she was warm, genuine, apologetic. "I'm so sorry for what you experienced," she said quietly as she brought them fresh drinks, premium snacks, anything they wanted. "That should never have happened." Rodriguez personally brought them their choice of meal, including the filet that had supposedly run out. "Somehow we found a few more," he said with a small smile. The rest of the flight was smooth, comfortable. What it should have been from the beginning. But the damage had been done. Maya sat quietly looking out the window, her notebook untouched in her lap. Sarah watched her daughter and felt a grief that had nothing to do with her husband's death and everything to do with innocence lost. Maya had learned today that the world could be cruel for no reason. That people would judge her before knowing her. That her worth would be questioned in ways her white classmates' worth never would be. It was a lesson Sarah had hoped to delay for years. Maybe forever. But here they were, 30,000 feet in the air, and her 8-year-old daughter had just had to fight for the basic dignity every human deserves. Dorothy held Sarah's hand, squeezed it gently. They didn't need to speak. They both knew this was bigger than one flight attendant. This was the weight of history. The exhaustion of fighting the same battles generation after generation. But they also knew that Maya had planted a seed today. That every person who'd recorded this, who'd witnessed it, who'd finally spoken up, would carry this forward. Change was slow. But it was possible. The plane began its descent into San Francisco. The seatbelt sign dinged on. Maya pressed her face to the window, watching the city appear below them. "We made it, Daddy," she whispered. "We made it to Uncle Marcus's wedding." As the wheels touched down, Sarah had no idea what was waiting for them. Had no idea that this flight was about to become national news. Had no idea that her brother was already on his way to the airport, fury and love propelling him forward. Had no idea that this moment would spark a movement, force conversations, change policies. All she knew was that her daughter had been hurt, and someone was going to answer for it. The plane taxied to the gate. Passengers began gathering their belongings, but many approached the Williams family as they waited. The elderly woman, Mrs. Patterson, came over, her face streaked with tears. "I'm ashamed that I said nothing sooner. I watched it happen and I stayed silent because I didn't want to make a scene. That was cowardice. I'm sorry." Her husband nodded. "We've given our contact information to Captain Rodriguez. We'll testify to everything we saw." The tech executive, still holding his phone, approached next. "I posted the video while we were still in the air. It's already going viral. Hundreds of thousands of views. The whole world is going to see what happened here." He looked at Maya. "You're brave, kid. Really brave." One by one, passengers who'd been silent during the confrontation found their voices. Apologized for not speaking up. Offered support. Promised to be better witnesses in the future. It was something. Not enough, but something. The cabin door opened. And standing at the gate, past the jetway, Sarah could see airport personnel. Lots of them. And news cameras. "Oh God," she muttered. Rodriguez appeared at their row. "Mr. Thompson requested that you be escorted off first, taken to a private area. If you're comfortable with that?" Sarah nodded. She needed to shield Maya from whatever circus was waiting out there. They gathered their belongings. Andrea helped Maya with her backpack, made sure she had her notebook and her pilot wings were still pinned securely. As they walked up the aisle, every passenger was standing. Not to leave, but in respect. A standing ovation for a family who'd simply wanted to fly in peace. Maya held her mother's hand tightly, overwhelmed by the attention. They exited the aircraft. The jetway felt longer than it had any right to be. At the gate, Skyward Airlines personnel were waiting. Not just gate agents. Corporate representatives in expensive suits, clearly in crisis management mode. Dr. Williams, I'm Jennifer Martinez, VP of Customer Relations. On behalf of Skyward Airlines, I want to apologize profusely for what you experienced. Mr. Thompson is on his way. He asked that we escort you to our VIP lounge where you can have privacy. Sarah nodded, too exhausted to argue. They were led through the airport, away from the main terminal. Away from the news crews Sarah could see setting up at the regular gates. The VIP lounge was beautiful. Quiet. Comfortable leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the runway. Maya immediately curled up on a couch, small and exhausted. Sarah sat beside her, pulled her close. Dorothy sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of her 68 years. Jennifer hovered nervously. Can I get you anything? Food, drinks, anything at all? Water, Sarah said quietly. And maybe some juice for Maya. Jennifer hurried off, leaving them alone. For the first time since boarding that flight, Sarah allowed herself to feel everything she'd been holding back. The rage. The humiliation. The heartbreak of watching her daughter question her worth. She pulled Maya closer, kissed the top of her head. I'm so proud of you, baby. So proud. Maya's voice was small. I didn't want to make a big deal. I just wanted her to stop. I know. But sometimes big deals happen even when we don't want them to. Are people going to be mad at me? That question broke Sarah's heart all over again. Some people might be. But the people who matter will be proud of you. You stood up for what was right. Dorothy's phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. She looked at it, her eyes widening. Sarah, you need to see this. She turned her phone around. The video from the flight was everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. Hashtag Justice for Maya was trending. Hashtag Skyway Accountability. Hashtag Flying While Black. The story was exploding in real time. News organizations were picking it up. Celebrities were weighing in. Everyone had an opinion. Oh my God, Sarah whispered. This wasn't just about one flight anymore. This was a moment. A flashpoint. Jennifer returned with drinks and a plate of snacks. Her phone was buzzing too. Mr. Thompson is pulling up now, she said. He's very upset. That was an understatement. Moments later, the door burst open. Marcus Thompson strode in and Sarah barely recognized her younger brother. Marcus was usually composed. CO polished. Always in control. This Marcus was barely holding it together. He saw Maya on the couch and his face crumpled. Maya Bean, his voice cracked. Maya looked up, saw her uncle and burst into tears. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees and pulled his niece into his arms. I'm so sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. Sarah felt her own tears coming. Seeing her strong, successful brother break down over what had happened to them. Marcus held Maya for a long moment, then pulled back to look at her face. Did anyone hurt you? Are you okay? Maya nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Marcus stood, still holding Maya's hand, and turned to Sarah. Tell me everything. Every single detail. Sarah did. From the moment they boarded to the champagne to the bathroom incident to the final demand that they move to economy. With each detail, Marcus's face grew harder. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Give me the head of HR. I don't care if she's in a meeting. Get her now. Pause. Susan, I need you to pull Janet Richardson's employment file. Every complaint, every incident, every piece of disciplinary action. I want it on my desk in an hour. Another pause, his voice getting colder. And I want a full review of our training programs. Every single employee, from gate agents to flight crew to corporate, goes through mandatory anti-discrimination training. No exceptions. And I want an independent investigation into our complaint handling procedures. How many incidents like this have we missed? How many people have been treated like this and we did nothing? He listened for a moment. I don't care about the cost. I don't care about the legal exposure. This is not negotiable. And Susan? If anyone pushes back on this, they can find work elsewhere. This is happening. He ended the call, then made another. Legal, this is Marcus. I need you to draft a statement. We're not spinning this. We're owning it. Full acknowledgement that one of our employees discriminated against passengers. Full apology. And a clear outline of the steps we're taking to ensure it never happens again. He looked at Sarah. I want your approval on the statement before it goes out. This is your story to tell, not mine. Sarah nodded, overwhelmed by how quickly Marcus was moving. He made 3 more calls. To the board of directors. To the head of communications. To his assistant, canceling everything on his schedule for the next week. When he finally put his phone down, he looked at Dorothy. Miss Dorothy, I am so sorry you had to relive this. I know you fought these battles decades ago. And here you are, having to fight them again. Dorothy's voice was tired but strong. The fight never ends, Marcus. But having people like you in positions of power, people who care, makes the difference. Don't apologize. Just do better. Marcus nodded, then turned to Jennifer, who was still hovering nearby. I want every employee who interacted with my family on that flight interviewed. Not just Janet. Everyone. I want to know who saw what happened and said nothing. Who enabled this. Because this isn't just about one flight attendant. It's about a culture that allowed this to happen. Jennifer nodded, taking notes rapidly on her tablet. And one more thing, Marcus said, his voice softening slightly. I want to know the names of the passengers who spoke up. Who recorded. Who offered to testify. I want to thank them personally. He sat down finally, the energy that had been propelling him forward seeming to drain out all at once. He looked at Maya, still curled on the couch, her eyes red from crying. Maya Bean, I need you to know something. What that woman did to you was wrong. It was evil. And it's not your fault in any way. You are perfect exactly as you are. And I'm going to make sure everyone at this airline understands that. Maya's voice was so small. Uncle Marcus, I didn't want to call you. I didn't want to get her in trouble. Marcus's eyes welled up again. Baby girl, you have the biggest heart. But some people need consequences to learn. And you did the right thing by speaking up. He pulled out a small jewelry box from his pocket. I was going to give these to you at the wedding, but I think you need them now. He opened the box. Inside were pilot wings. But not just any wings. These were gold. Real gold. Engraved. These belong to your daddy, Marcus said quietly. He gave them to me when I was starting out in this industry, when I was scared and didn't think I belonged. He told me they were for courage. For the times when the world tries to make you feel small. He said as long as I wore them, I'd remember that the sky doesn't see color. The sky doesn't judge. The sky just holds us all up. He carefully unpinned the wings Maya was wearing, the silver ones, and replaced them with the gold ones. Now they're yours. And whenever you feel scared, whenever someone tries to make you feel like you don't belong, you touch these and you remember. You are your father's daughter. You are brilliant and brave and worthy of every good thing this world has to offer. Maya touched the new wings, her fingers tracing the engraving. For my Maya love, Daddy, was etched in tiny letters on the back. The tears came again, but these were different. Healing tears. Memorial tears. Sarah watched her daughter and her brother and felt something shift. The pain was still there. The anger was still there. But so was hope. So was love. So was family. They stayed in the VIP lounge for another hour. Marcus ordered food, made sure they ate, even though none of them had much appetite. He told them about the wedding plans. About James, his fiancée, who was frantic to meet them, who'd wanted to come to the airport but Marcus had asked him to wait. I needed to see you first, Marcus said. Needed to make sure you were okay. Dorothy watched her grandson with pride. Your parents would be so proud of the man you've become, Marcus. Not because you're successful, but because you care. Marcus's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Media requests. Board members. Employees. The whole world wanted a statement. But Marcus ignored it all. His family came first. Finally he stood. Are you ready to leave? Or do you need more time? Sarah looked at Maya. Baby, what do you think? Are you ready? Maya straightened, touched her gold pilot wings and nodded. I'm ready. They gathered their things. Marcus's security team appeared, creating a buffer as they left the lounge. Even with security, even taking back hallways, there were cameras. Reporters shouting questions. Dr. Williams, how do you feel about what happened? Maya, what do you want people to know? Mr. Thompson, will Ms. Richardson be fired? Marcus's voice was firm. We'll have a statement soon. Right now, my family needs privacy. They pushed through to Marcus's waiting car. A black SUV with tinted windows. As they drove through San Francisco toward Marcus's house, Maya looked out the window at the city where her uncle was getting married, where they were supposed to be celebrating. Uncle Marcus, she said quietly, are you still going to get married? Did I ruin it? Marcus twisted in his seat to look at her. Maya Bean, you didn't ruin anything. Yes, we're still getting married. And you're still going to be our flower girl. Nothing changes that. But everyone's going to be talking about what happened on the plane. Let them talk. This wedding is about love. About family. About celebrating that we've all survived things we shouldn't have had to survive, and we're still here, still loving each other. They pulled up to Marcus's house. A beautiful Victorian in Pacific Heights. James was waiting on the front steps, and when he saw them he ran down. James was everything Marcus wasn't. Where Marcus was tall and imposing, James was compact and warm. Where Marcus was CEO formal, James was artist casual. But together they fit perfectly. James hugged Sarah and Dorothy, then knelt down to Maya's level. "Hey little warrior. I heard you had quite a day." Maya nodded, suddenly shy. "You know what I think?" James said. "I think heroes deserve ice cream. And I just happen to have gotten 3 different kinds. Want to help me make sundaes?" Maya's face brightened slightly. "Really? Really? Come on." He took Maya's hand and led her inside, already chatting about toppings and whether chocolate sauce was better than caramel. Marcus watched them go, his face soft. "James is good with her." Sarah smiled. "He's good for you." "Yeah, he is." They went inside. The house was beautiful, tastefully decorated, full of light and art and warmth. James set Maya up in the kitchen making sundaes while the adults gathered in the living room. Marcus pulled out his laptop. "Okay, I need you to look at this statement. Tell me if it's right." He pulled up a document and read aloud. "Today, members of my family experienced discrimination on a Skyward Airlines flight. My sister, Dr. Sarah Williams, my grandmother-in-law, Dorothy Williams, and my niece, Maya Williams, were subjected to treatment that was racist, unprofessional, and utterly unacceptable. I am heartbroken that this happened on my airline. I am furious that an employee I trusted to represent our values instead represented the worst of what airlines can be. But I am also grateful. Grateful that my niece had the courage to speak up. Grateful for the passengers who recorded what happened. Grateful for those who finally found their voices and offered to testify. This incident has exposed systemic failures in our training, our culture, and our accountability measures. We are committed to fixing this. Not with words but with action. Effective immediately, Skyward Airlines is implementing mandatory anti-discrimination training for all employees and independent review of all discrimination complaints from the past 5 years. A new passenger advocate position to ensure complaints are properly investigated. A $1 million donation to organizations fighting discrimination in travel. This is just the beginning. We will do better. We must do better. To my family, I'm sorry, and I love you. To everyone who experiences discrimination while traveling, your voices matter. Speak up. Record. Report. Demand better. You deserve dignity. You deserve respect. And you deserve better than what my family received today. Change is hard. Change is uncomfortable. But change is necessary. The sky doesn't see color. It's time we learn to do the same. Marcus Thompson, CEO, Skyward Airlines. The room was quiet when he finished. Finally, Dorothy spoke. "It's good, Marcus. It's honest. And it holds you accountable without making excuses." Sarah nodded. "Send it." Marcus looked at them. "You're sure? Once this goes out, there's no taking it back. The board is going to lose their minds. Our stock might take a hit. There will be backlash." Sarah's voice was firm. "Let there be backlash. You're doing the right thing." Marcus hit send. Within minutes, his phone exploded. But he silenced it, set it face down on the coffee table. "The world can wait. Right now, I want to spend time with my family." They spent the evening together. James made dinner. Maya slowly came out of her shell, laughing at James's terrible jokes, helping Dorothy set the table. For a few hours they could almost pretend it was just a normal family gathering. Almost forget the trauma of that morning. But reality had a way of intruding. That night, after Maya had fallen asleep in the guest room, the adults gathered in Marcus's study. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Janet Richardson will be terminated. The investigation will reveal she's had multiple complaints over the years that were inadequately addressed. She'll probably sue for wrongful termination. And we'll win. Because what she did was documented, witnessed, and indefensible." Dorothy shifted in her seat. "But the real question is, does this change anything? Or is it just one person taking the fall while the system stays the same?" Marcus looked at his grandmother-in-law with respect. "That's what I'm trying to prevent. I've been CEO for 3 years and I thought we were doing okay. Good hiring practices, diversity initiatives, the usual corporate stuff. But clearly it's not enough." He pulled out a folder, thick with papers. "I had HR pull complaints from the past 5 years. Sarah, there are dozens, Dozens of passengers reporting discriminatory treatment. And most of them were categorized as customer service issues and minimized. You look sick. I've been so focused on profits and expansion and beating our competitors, I didn't see this happening under my watch. Sarah's voice was gentle. You can't change what you didn't know. But now you know. So what are you going to do about it? Everything, Marcus said firmly. I'm bringing in outside consultants. Not the usual corporate diversity trainers who show up, give a presentation, collect a check, and leave. Real experts. People who've done this work. People who'll hold us accountable. He started pacing. I'm also changing how we handle complaints. Creating a system where they can't be buried. Where there's real investigation, real consequences. James, who'd been quiet, spoke up. You know, some people are going to say you're only doing this because it's your family. That if it had been strangers, you wouldn't care as much. Marcus stopped pacing. They're probably right. And that's shameful. But whether my motivation is pure or not, the result is still change. Real change. And maybe that's what matters. Dorothy stood, walked over to her grandson, placed her hand on his cheek. You're a good man, Marcus. You come from good people. Your parents raised you right. And your brother-in-law? James would be proud too. Real proud. Marcus's eyes got wet. I hope so, Miss Dorothy. I really hope so. The next 2 days passed in a blur. The story wouldn't die. It dominated news cycles. Everyone had an opinion. Some praised Marcus for his response. Others accused him of performative activism. Some attacked Sarah for making a big deal out of it. Others rallied to Maya's defense. The videos from the flight were analyzed frame by frame. Janet Richardson was identified, doxxed, harassed. Her life was destroyed in the court of public opinion before any formal investigation completed. Sarah had mixed feelings about that. Yes, Janet had been wrong. Terribly wrong. But the online mob was vicious in ways that felt excessive. She's human, Sarah said one evening as they watched another news segment. She did something terrible, but the internet is treating her like she's a monster. Dorothy's response was measured. She's experiencing a fraction of what black people experience every day. The difference is she did something to deserve it. Did she deserve to lose her entire life? She chose her actions. This is the consequence. Sarah wasn't sure she agreed, but she was too tired to argue. Marcus's statement was everywhere. Some airlines announced similar initiatives, trying to get ahead of their own potential incidents. Others stayed silent, hoping it would blow over. Politicians weighed in. A congressional hearing was proposed. The FAA announced they'd be reviewing discrimination complaint procedures across all carriers. One incident on one flight had become a catalyst for industry-wide examination. But through all of it, Marcus stayed focused on one thing: his wedding. I'm not letting this steal our joy, he told James. We've waited too long for this day. The wedding was planned for Saturday, 2 days after the flight incident. Small, intimate, just family and close friends at a beautiful venue overlooking the bay. Maya was still the flower girl. She tried to back out, worried she'd ruin the day with all the attention on her. But James wouldn't hear of it. Maya, you're the most important person in this wedding besides me and Uncle Marcus. We need you there. Not in spite of what happened, but because of what you represent. Courage, truth, family. That's what this day is about. So on Saturday morning, Maya put on her flower girl dress. Dorothy helped her with her hair. Sarah fastened the gold pilot wings to the sash. Your daddy's with you today, Sarah said softly. He's always with you. The wedding was beautiful. Marcus and James stood under an arch of white flowers, the Golden Gate Bridge visible in the background. The ceremony was short, personal, filled with laughter and tears. They'd written their own vows. Marcus's included a line about family being who shows up in the hard times, and he looked directly at Sarah and Maya when he said it. When it was time for the flower girls, Maya walked down the aisle with quiet dignity, scattering petals, her gold wings catching the sunlight. She was grace personified. A child who'd been hurt but hadn't let it break her. After the ceremony, during the reception, something unexpected happened. A woman approached Sarah at the bar. She was black, maybe 40, dressed elegantly. Dr. Williams? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to thank you. Sarah turned, confused. Thank me? I'm a flight attendant. For a different airline, but still. And I've experienced what you experienced. Multiple times. But I never said anything. I just absorbed it, internalized it, told myself it wasn't that bad. Her eyes were wet. Watching your daughter stand up for herself, it made me realize I've been letting myself be diminished. So I filed a formal complaint yesterday about incidents I experienced. And I wanted you to know that you inspired that. Sarah didn't know what to say. She hugged this stranger, this woman who'd found her voice because Maya had found hers. That woman wasn't alone. Throughout the reception, people approached, sharing their stories, their gratitude, their own experiences with discrimination. It was heavy. It was exhausting. But it was also hopeful. Change was happening. Slowly, painfully, but happening. Later, as the sun set over the bay, Marcus found Sarah standing alone on the terrace. "You okay, sis?" "I don't know. I'm angry that this happened. I'm grateful for how you responded. I'm overwhelmed by the attention. I'm worried about Maya. I'm hopeful that something good comes from this. I'm exhausted. I'm all of it at once." Marcus pulled her into a hug. "That's fair. That's all fair." They stood there for a moment, brother and sister, watching the boats on the water. "You know what the craziest part is?" Sarah said. "We were just trying to fly to your wedding. That's all. Just trying to get from point A to point B." And that simple act became a flashpoint for national conversation about racism. "Because it shouldn't be complicated," Marcus said. "Getting on a plane shouldn't require courage. Sitting in a seat you paid for shouldn't be an act of resistance. But for Black people, even the simple things aren't simple." "Will it change? Really change?" "I don't know. But I'm going to spend the rest of my career trying. And not just because of what happened to you, but because it's right." Inside, music started playing. James was dancing with Maya, spinning her around, making her giggle. "She's going to be okay, you know," Marcus said, watching his niece. "She's stronger than we give her credit for." "I know. But she shouldn't have to be this strong at 8 years old." "No, she shouldn't. But she is. And we'll be here to support her through it." They went back inside, joined the celebration, danced and laughed and celebrated love in the face of hate. And for that evening it was enough. The weeks that followed were complicated. The investigation into Janet Richardson concluded what everyone already knew. She discriminated against the Williams family. She was terminated. But the investigation revealed more. Multiple complaints over the years. A pattern of behavior that had been minimized, excused, or ignored. Janet wasn't just fired. She lost her pension, faced potential civil litigation. Sarah watched it unfold with complicated feelings. Janet had hurt her family. Had traumatized her daughter. But the destruction of her entire life felt disproportionate somehow. One day, about a month after the incident, Sarah received a letter. It had been forwarded through Marcus's office. It was from Janet Richardson. Sarah almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity got the better of her. The letter was long. Handwritten. Messy in places, like Janet had been crying as she wrote it. She apologized. Not a corporate apology, but a real one. She acknowledged that she'd treated them terribly. That she'd let prejudices she didn't even recognize control her actions. She wrote about growing up in a small town, in a family where casual racism was normal. How she'd thought she'd moved past it, but clearly hadn't. She wrote about losing everything. Her job, her reputation, her relationships. Some friends had abandoned her, calling her a racist. Others had abandoned her for apologizing, saying she'd done nothing wrong. She was in therapy now, she wrote. Trying to understand herself. Trying to be better. She didn't expect forgiveness. Didn't ask for it. Just wanted Sarah to know that she was genuinely sorry. And that she was trying to learn from this. Sarah read the letter 3 times. She showed it to Dorothy. "What do you think I should do?" Dorothy was quiet for a long time. "That's not for me to decide. But I'll tell you what I think. I think Janet Richardson is getting a chance that many Black people never get. The chance to learn from her mistakes and rebuild her life. The chance to become better. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the point isn't punishment. Maybe the point is growth." Sarah folded the letter carefully. "I'm not ready to forgive her. I don't know if I ever will be. That's okay too. Forgiveness isn't required. But acknowledgement that she's trying? That might be worth something." Sarah didn't respond to the letter. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she kept it, tucked it away in a drawer. A reminder that people were complicated. That even those who hurt us were human. Meanwhile, the changes at Skyward Airlines were rolling out. Marcus wasn't just talking. He was acting. Mandatory training. New complaint procedures. An independent ombudsman position. Regular audits of employee behavior. And something more. He started a scholarship program for Black students interested in aviation. Named it after James Williams, Maya's father. "Your husband should have lived," Marcus told Sarah when he announced it. But since he was taken too soon, at least his name will live on. At least his legacy will be more pilots, more dreams, more kids who look like Maya seeing themselves in the sky. Sarah cried when he told her. Happy tears. Grieving tears. All mixed together. 6 months after the incident, Maya was invited to testify before a congressional committee examining discrimination in air travel. Sarah was hesitant. Maya was only 8. Did she need to relive this in front of the world? But Maya wanted to do it. I want to help, she said simply. So they went to Washington. Maya in a new dress, her gold pilot wings pinned over her heart. She sat at a massive table, microphones in front of her, senators and representatives looking down at her from their elevated seats. She was so small compared to the grandeur of the room. But when she spoke, her voice was clear. My name is Maya Williams. I'm 8 years old. I want to be a pilot like my daddy was. And I think everyone should be able to fly without being scared. She talked about the flight. About how the flight attendant made her feel. About being confused why being black meant she didn't belong. I asked my mom if we did something wrong, Maya said, her voice catching. Because I couldn't understand why she was mean to us. My mom said we didn't do anything wrong. But it felt like we did. She looked at the legislators. I think grown-ups need to learn to be nicer to people who don't look like them. Because kids notice. And it makes us sad. It was simple, childlike, and devastatingly effective. The hearing room was silent except for the sound of a few senators crying. When Maya finished, she was given a standing ovation. Legislation was proposed. Not perfect, not comprehensive, but a start. Better training requirements. Standardized complaint procedures. Accountability measures. Was it enough? No. But it was more than there had been before. And it started because an 8-year-old girl refused to accept that she was less than. 2 years passed. Maya was 10 now. Taller, more confident, but still carrying her notebook of airplane sketches everywhere. She still wore her gold pilot wings. Still talked to her daddy when she looked at the sky. But she was different too. More aware. More careful. She noticed prejudice everywhere now, couldn't unsee it once she'd seen it so clearly. Sarah worried about that. Worried that she'd stolen some of Maya's innocence that day she decided to speak up. But Dorothy, wise as ever, set her straight. You didn't steal anything. The world took it. You just helped her understand what was taken. And understanding is the first step to fighting back. The annual anniversary of the incident came. The internet remembered as it always did. #RememberMaya trended. News outlets did retrospectives. Marcus's changes at Skyward had become industry standard. Other airlines had followed suit, some enthusiastically, others reluctantly. Discrimination complaints were down. Not gone but reduced. Progress was slow. Painful. Incomplete. But it was progress. Sarah had gone back to work, back to saving lives in the operating room. But she also started speaking at medical conferences about bias in healthcare, drawing parallels to what she experienced on that flight. Dorothy went back to teaching, running workshops on civil rights for children, making sure the next generation understood the battles fought and the battles remaining. Marcus continued pushing for change in the airline industry. He'd become a voice for equity, using his platform to advocate for marginalized passengers. And Maya? Maya kept drawing planes. Kept dreaming of flying. On the 2nd anniversary of the incident, they all flew together again. Skyward Airlines, naturally. Marcus insisted. Sarah was nervous. Maya noticed. It's okay, Mommy. We can do this. They boarded the plane. First class again. Because they'd earned it and they weren't going to let fear steal what was theirs. The flight crew was welcoming. Genuinely so. They recognized the Williams family, of course. Everyone did. But the recognition came with respect, not prejudice. It's an honor to have you flying with us, the lead flight attendant said. Your courage changed our entire industry. Maya smiled politely, but Sarah could see the weight of it on her daughter's shoulders. The burden of being a symbol. Of carrying more than a 10-year-old should have to carry. But they got through the flight. No incidents. No drama. Just a family flying from one place to another. The way it always should have been. When they landed, Maya looked at her mother. That was better. Yeah, baby. That was better. It wasn't perfect. The world wasn't fixed. Racism didn't disappear because one incident went viral. But it was better. And sometimes better was enough to keep going. Maya Williams grew up to become a pilot. She graduated from flight school at the top of her class, just like her father had. She flew for Skyward Airlines naturally. Marcus made sure she had a job waiting if she wanted it. On her first day as a commercial pilot, she wore her father's gold wings. And she made sure every passenger who boarded her aircraft felt welcome, felt seen, felt valued. Because she remembered what it felt like to be made small. And she was determined that no one on her watch would ever feel that way. Years later, when asked about the incident that had defined so much of her childhood, Captain Maya Williams had this to say: "I didn't change the world that day. I was 8 years old. I just asked my uncle for help. But what happened after, that changed things. Not because one person was punished, but because people started paying attention. Started recording. Started speaking up. Started demanding better. My daddy used to say that the sky doesn't see color. And that's beautiful. But the problem is we're not in the sky all the time. We live on the ground, where color matters, where prejudice exists, where people make assumptions based on skin instead of character. So the real work isn't making the sky colorblind. The sky already is. The real work is making people see each other the way the sky sees us, as equals, all trying to reach the same destination, all deserving of dignity and respect. Change is slow. Change is hard. Change requires people to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and the world they live in. But change is possible. I know because I lived it. I've seen it. And if an 8-year-old girl with a phone and her daddy's pilot wings can spark a movement, imagine what we could all do if we decided to really try. The world isn't fixed. Racism didn't end because of Maya Williams. Discrimination in air travel still happens. People still get targeted for the color of their skin, their religion, their identity. But because one little girl refused to stay silent, because one family demanded dignity, because one CEO chose accountability over profit protection, things got a little better. And a little better is how we start. We start with brave voices. With recorded evidence. With people who refuse to look away. With those who use their power to protect rather than punish. We start with the understanding that we're all just trying to get somewhere safe. That we all deserve respect. That dignity isn't negotiable. The sky doesn't see color. It never has. Maybe it's time we learn to see each other the way the sky sees us. With room for everyone. And judgment for no one. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you want to be better, then do something about it. Speak up when you see injustice. Record when you witness discrimination. Demand accountability from institutions that claim to serve everyone equally. And remember, change doesn't start with perfection. It starts with one person deciding that enough is enough. It starts with an 8-year-old girl who just wanted to use the bathroom. Who just wanted to sit in her seat. Who just wanted to be treated like she mattered. Because she did matter. And so do you. Share this story. Subscribe. But more importantly, be the kind of person who speaks up. Who records. Who testifies. Who demands better. Be the passenger who doesn't look away. Be the employee who challenges discriminatory practices. Be the leader who chooses principle over profit. Be the change you want to see. Even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Because somewhere there's another Maya Williams on another flight, experiencing what she shouldn't have to experience. And she needs to know that people are watching. That people care. That her voice matters. The sky is big enough for all of us. It's time we acted like it.